you want us to
Oh, I know, you look at me.
Okay.
Ignore them.
So my name's Georgia Wilson. I'm an associate here at KTA Architects. I've been with the practice since we started, almost from day one.
Okay, great.
Kind of broad knowledge of what's happened.
Lovely.
Terry Brabazon, Associate Director with KTA. I've been here 2.5 years, sort of. So, yeah, relatively newcomer.
Okay, great. Yep. So you've been here since basically the beginning. Would you be able to tell us a bit about KTA Architects, how it all began, and how you came to work for him?
Yeah, so I think Karichi, when I met him, was working at PTW Architects actually. So he was looking around the time of the GFC to start his own practice. So I think that was quite an ambitious thing to do at that point in time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were going kind of all freaking out about what was happening in the world. Development obviously slows when there's a GFC around. And he took that time to start his own business. So I started with him, and we mainly began with interior projects.
Yeah.
So I think it was a different way to link in, I guess, to the whole architecture scene. Projects kind of come in a bit easier and also get done a lot quicker. So it was a good way to establish ourselves and to actually get a product finished and a building done that then allowed us to look outside of that and do more.
Okay, great. So did you study interior?
No, I studied architecture.
Okay, so you did, yeah.
Yeah, so actually more than 90% of the office are architects.
Okay.
So we have even our architecture team work in interior as well.
Yep.
So I think it's a good way to train people on the nitty-gritty of joinery that then obviously translates to buildings in a bigger scale.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I found the same thing. Even though I'm just at the beginning,
Yeah.
I've worked on a lot of interiors projects. It's a nice, easy way to start. You can see a project from start till the end. It actually gets finished.
Yeah.
So.
And same components, same procedures, what goes here, what goes there, and it's all.
And it's all about building something, and so it's really about interior architecture.
Yeah, and also the interior design or decorating. I think a lot of people get confused with, are you picking the couches and the pillows and that type of thing? It's obviously a lot more than
it's
that.
much more detailed than that.
Yeah.
No, I get that. Also, Terry, how did you come to work for Kochi?
Karichi and I have worked together for many, many years, because I was a director at PTW for 21 years. So during that time, Karichi started with KTA and PTW, and so we did a number of projects together, some markets, etc. So we knew each other. Yeah. And so one day I sort of thought I'd had enough of the corporate big business stuff. So we coincidentally sort of met up, and we decided to get together, and I decided to make the move, which is been great.
Oh, good. Yeah, great. All right. So, what size is the firm? You can always see from here. But
Yeah, about 40 at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that a choice that Kochi's made to keep the team at about 40, or is he looking to?
We haven't got to a point where we're keeping a team at any size. So that's been not a gradual growth, quite a quick growth from starting from about kind of 3 to 5 people, and then almost every year from that we've doubled. So it's based on the project demand that we have in the office. Whether we're going to stay at 40 and kind of plateau there or keep growing is really a bit of an organic evolution.
And what does it depend, like the road of the firm? For instance, I can understand sometimes there's a lot of work, but also all of a sudden there's no work. So, well, not that much work. So, how did you organize this in the firm? Like, do you kind of outsource?
So we do everything ourselves here. Obviously specialist consultants for certain aspects like our CGIs and things like that we do outsource to. All of our documentations and designs done in-house. Managing the ups and downs, I don't think anyone would be able to give you a good answer on how to do that, because it is very cyclic and you'll have a lot of jobs going at the same time, and then construction can obviously complete on one, and then you've got people free, but also the way that developers move changes over what your demand is for architecture. So you'll have a very big involvement to get a DA lodged, and then it will slow down a bit while they're waiting. So there's kind of a lot of fluctuations in that. You've got to have enough overlap, I guess, in the resourcing in the office to cover the busy periods, and then likewise when there's not so many things going on, we do then obviously have to make sure we can support the key people through those times, but it's a bit...
Yeah, effectively architecture is cyclic, but we've been pretty lucky since the GFC. It's been pretty much fairly consistent, and we've changed sort of just from interiors, as Drew said, to doing architectural design and doing the construction phase. So it's a sort of, I suppose, a more recent thing since I've come on board. So by broadening the base of what we do, we protect ourselves because when the building's under construction, it's almost unheard of for it to stop during construction. So that gives us a longevity.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And I guess the type of projects we pick as well. So a development on a multi-res scale, the construction's going to go for 2 or 3 years. If you were doing just private residential houses, they're coming in and out a lot quicker. So yeah, by doing the construction, you're lengthening that time frame and kind of ensuring a bit more longevity on the projects.
And how did you kind of make this grow in the firm in terms of the clients to give you confident, well, being confident that you can be able to kind of be prepared to get bigger and bigger scale projects in the firm? Because that's always a challenge when, like, starting from interior design to ground green square, which is starting to position you more in the market.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose part of it comes with me. I suppose so I came on board to sort of
Terry's got the expertise
fill in the
it,
gaps and sort of had the experience with doing larger scale projects. And I've done larger scale projects for 30 years, particularly large scale projects and the delivery of projects. One Central Park, I was the director on that. I was also a director, senior architect on the Regent Place. So that sort of scale project is what I've always liked, like the next step. So
yeah, and it was quite a strategic decision, I guess, from Koichi on my behalf when we did say, okay, we've done the interior, we want to do more, to get someone like Terry on board and other senior members in the office, so you don't have to just you don't need to take the leap with clients. You've got the expertise, you've got the capability. Koichi obviously worked for more than 10 years at PTW, so it wasn't like he was starting, as a student and just trying to build up himself. So I think you've got to make sure that you have the confidence with your clients that you can deliver it, and that has to be off the back of projects that you've done successfully, that you can show them and that you can really kind of enforce that.
But certainly a lot of, I suppose, everything you do with architecture, every building is a prototype. So from the smallest object to the biggest project, they're all prototypes. So everything you do is unique. So it's really a matter of attitude, and how your confidence about approaching it. Because even Foster and Partners never, they did their first airport. They never always did airports. So, all of the benchmark and leading architects in the world have always started somewhere. So you can go on that journey too. It's not exclusive.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, that kind of leads into the next question, is what types of projects do you work on?
Yeah, so mainly, as we said, we started with the interior, so mainly for multi-residential buildings, and then now multi-residential apartment buildings is predominantly our work. We do still do private houses as well, or smaller scale apartment buildings. We have in the past, and we are still doing some restaurants as well, so hospitality. Museums, which is again kind of like part of it, but
That's great.
I mean, it's obviously it's a big part of why we're based here in Sydney. Sydney's a residential market. The eastern seaboard of Australia is a residential market. But we've been very keen to keep, the base stuff, where we came from, the interiors going strong.
So we will still do that as well, even if we're not an architect on a building, we'll still do the interior design as well. So we haven't kind of left that part of it behind.
Okay, great. Yeah, awesome. All right, so we're curious to know what a typical day is like here. And what's the kind of culture that you try to breed within the office?
No such thing as a typical day. Every day's different.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah, no, it is. I think it's always always depends what's going on in the office, whether we're sitting down and hand sketching apartment layouts or car park layouts or facade details. We might be off at client meetings for a whole day. We might be workshops internally.
Too expensive.
Coordinating with consultants as well is a big part of it. Internal design reviews with obviously Koichi and the teams. So it does vary.
Okay, yeah. And then what inspired you both to pursue careers in design? So what got you both into it back at the very beginning?
Well, I suppose I was talking to Koichi not long ago that I was very fortunate in that I've always wanted to be an architect since I can remember kindergarten, all the things in blocks.
Oh wow, okay.
Building buildings. I've always wanted to do it. And I was fortunate because when I became an architect, I actually liked it.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a battle. So a lot of people will go through that aspiration versus reality. But, so I've loved it and loved the big buildings and doing special stuff like particularly what we're doing here.
Okay, great. Yeah.
I think for me it was more the idea of having, obviously I like the creativity and the design aspect of it, but I still wanted something that you could see, that you could ground your occupation to. So I think architecture is fantastic because at the end of the day or at the end of the year or at the end of 10 years, you can see what you've achieved. I think that's a pretty fantastic part of the industry is you're not just achieving things on paper or on Excel spreadsheets or in numbers. It's something that you can physically walk up to and say, wow, we've achieved that.
Yeah.
And then also the fact that there's so many aspects of architecture and a different client, a different building, a different site always means there's a different response. So really the idea that no two buildings are the same, no day is the same is what I think is a great part of the industry, is that you never get bored. I never come in and think, oh, I've already done this 100 times. Like, always something different to consider. There's always some problem to solve. There's always some aspect that you are continually learning yourself as well. So I think design is such an iterative process. You never really stop. So I think that's what,
That's comforting to hear. I'm plugging away at uni at the moment. It's nice. So what do you believe sets your practice apart from others? Like what's kind of like your signature? Or...
I think the creativity of our buildings is probably what sets us apart.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a question for you. You're obviously interested in our firm.
Yeah.
What do you guys see in what we do that you think they might be interesting to talk to? And I guess most people from the outside looking in will go, they're doing some really cool stuff, some exciting stuff, some things I haven't seen before. I guess that's really what sets us apart.
Your designs always look really visual.
And even for myself, I haven't seen it all yet. We've done it again.
Yeah.
But it's, as I say, they're all different. And importantly, you've got to find the things that are different and just show how you can do it. And you can realise something. Part of the process is for unique designs is being able to convince people that you can do it. You can do it. Because they're not impossible dreams, they're achievable.
Yeah.
So it's a psychological thing as well. And that's where you have confidence in your design. You know your designs, you can convince people that, hey, you can build this.
Great. So as students, we're constantly asked to present our view on, our opinions on architecture and what the, form our own design philosophy. Like, do you guys have a kind of design philosophy that you have within the office, and how do you practice that? Bit of a tricky one.
It's probably a good one for Koichi, I guess that's
I think that one was more directed for
Koichi's philosophy, but I mean it's something that we do in try and instill in the staff as well, so that you need to take people on the journey, including clients, but also within the office, so that everyone feels like they're working towards a kind of common goal or understanding, what it is that drives Koichi as well.
Yeah.
So I think he's certainly from day one in a lot of our earlier projects like the Cave Restaurant and Tree Restaurant and things like that, it's really a link to nature that drives most of his design philosophy. So I guess in some ways that's his Japanese heritage as well, so the textures, materiality, natural materials and things like that. Yeah, simplicity and kind of not a minimalist approach, but something that is warm and inviting. I guess that's part of it. And then obviously wanting to then make sure that the buildings that we do design are more than just buildings, so they're not just out there for the sake of looking at it. They've got to do what they need to do. So they've got to create homes for people, or make inviting places to live, good ventilation, solar, all those things that you can draw from nature is really, I guess, what every project has to come back to at the end of the day. So I think that's probably the philosophy that we use on most projects. What can you learn?
Yeah, that's
what do you learn from nature as an element to developing architecture, or how do you understand that nature is quite important to project it in architecture?
In terms of
the design, probably.
No, it's not so much going into the process of nature in terms of a bionuclear response. It's more the simple things. So, for instance, in our office, we can open the windows and we have natural ventilation. We have good light. It's really very simplistic principles in nature that you want to make sure you're not excluding from an architectural design. So you can't just design a great building that looks fantastic from the outside and say everyone who lives in here can't open their windows. Do you know what I mean? So it's about having that. It doesn't have to be very technical. It's just the simple things that you can learn.
It's a bit about the perception that we hope that we aspire to having people feel that their homes, particularly residentially, is a natural place.
Yeah.
People, I don't know, these people feel more comfortable being in a park or being associated with nature. So we want to try and take some of that feel through to our buildings, so it's easy to build concrete plasterboard boxes. So it's just trying to take the edge off that and gradually evolve it away from that. And the world's become more receptive to that. So
apartments are getting smaller, demand on prices is obviously higher, so I think all of those things contribute to what's happening in the development sense. I think as an architect you've got a responsibility to make sure that at the end of the day someone can live in what you're designing.
Oh, we're all thinking that at our age, trying to buy something, not being able to afford anything in Sydney. I'd actually been looking at the Commons and the Nightingale models by Brick Architecture in Melbourne. I'm not sure if you've come across those, but they're a really good starting point, possibly heading in the right direction. I'm not sure if it will be as successful in Sydney with our land prices, but no, it's nice to see things heading in that direction.
How do you balance that wonderful developer to make as much money as they can out of the project, but also deliver that quality and the aspirations for your project that you deliver?
We're pretty lucky in New South Wales actually that there's certain controls that place obligations on developers. So it's called a SEP 65 or the Residential Flat Design Code. So they set a set of standards to make sure that residential buildings are fit for occupation and habitation. So they enforce things like ventilation, solar access, minimum apartment sizes, windows, that type of thing. So there's a few controls that we're there to protect that amenity. But otherwise it's a constant discussion with your clients.
and it does vary between states, which don't have set compliance and controls. But it's interesting that they're all sort of still seeing Sydney's set components whilst they don't have it. They sort of would like to have it. So there is a bit of aspiration there, and you can at least lever some of that. And I think one of the big controls about what's getting the design is there's a natural competitiveness between the developers and the market themselves. They're wanting to
be better
than better than whoever. So that competitiveness allows you to bring unique things into projects. And occasionally you get clients who are very keen to invest in architecture. Phrases within the area of One Central Park. Occasionally you're lucky you get a benefactor like that, and you're lucky with Crown as well. Who see value in architecture, leading edge architecture.
On the more practical side of things, once given a brief, how do you approach the design process and how do you structure your projects in terms of the process and work delegation around the office?
Well, I suppose, everything comes from the initial design. When a brief comes in, usually it's Karichi and Georgia, and it's a small team who look at the initial design, and that develops through the DA phase, and we expand the teams towards design development. Shifts probably a bit more my way, or obviously the people in the office who sort of go into the delivery phase. So pretty much everyone gets exposure to every aspect of projects. There are those who like to be in certain spots, but we try and make sure that they get a touch of everything.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So
There's kind of three main teams, like a design or upfront kind of concept team. Then you'll have your documentation side of it essentially, and then also the interior team that kind of work in with that. So that's, in most instances, it's one of those three stages that you're working with in the project.
Okay.
So what do you look when you're looking for architects? Like, what is kind of the profile more or less? You say, well, it's what we're looking more or less, this kind of personality or this characteristics or these skills?
Both, yeah. So often if we've got a client who wants a certain project documented in Revit, for instance, you'll look for people who have fantastic Revit skills. Upfront design concept, you'll look for someone who has a strong design aesthetic and kind of really enjoys working on that conceptual aspect of it. So it could come down to their strengths in terms of a technical skill or a design skill, experience.
And their sort of motivation and sort of passion is important.
To do what we do, you've really got to love what you do. So it's never straightforward. It's not boxes, and so I think people here also, we're lucky to have a group of people that really enjoy getting on board with the design and happy to work hard at it and do the best for it. So
I mean, I still, after all the years I've been involved, I still don't know why architects do architecture.
Yeah.
I think we're sort of all mad.
Yeah.
But it's something that's special about us.
It is.
And it requires the passion or whatever. And why do you spend sort of week after week here working stupid hours? Because it's not because you have to, because you can walk out the door tomorrow.
Yeah. It's not because a client's telling us to either a lot of the time. So
So it's one of those things with architects, and I think it's I think it's a great thing because it makes us unique.
So the Green Square project, definitely one of the most anticipated projects this year. Radical designs are not commonly seen in Sydney. Usually they just get stuck in the concept phase and never actually make it into the real world. So how did you manage to convert this concept into reality? What inspired it, and what kind of challenges did you face getting it there?
So Green Square started with a design excellence competition.
Yes.
So that's something that the City of Sydney have established in the last couple of years to really kind of, I guess, push for more exciting architecture. So a lot of parts of Sydney and the CBD are quite restricted to what you can do because there's a heritage building next door or there's certain planning controls. So I guess in Green Square specifically, it's a pretty new urban regeneration area. So there's not a lot around, which is kind of unusual in Sydney to get a bit of a blank canvas to start with.
Okay.
But we started that in a design excellence comp, so there were 4 architects competing. We were given some stage 1 massing things, so that set the parameters for what we had to put on the site. And then really the concept was driven by how we could improve on what we had there. So it was about allowing sunlight into the central courtyard in the building, also the Green Square Plaza, which is next door. So that was the driving factor to it. Obviously the shape is pretty innovative, and I think really it's a lot of people look at, wow, that's great, what does it mean? So the whole surface of the curve is sculpted by a sun angle that protects the amenity of the solar light. Likewise, the big kind of loop in the centre, or the hole on this northern side, is allowing northern light into the building. So it's about kind of creating an improvement in the amenity to the public domain as well as to the residents, and obviously putting something there that's going to become a bit of a gateway to the whole new Green Square Town Centre area.
Yeah, and that gateway sort of was an important thing to the client, so you sort of wanted to get a bit of a statement happening, so sort of we built on that. And I think with the design excellence, because it went into the second stage, because we drew, they weren't unanimous, so we had to fight for the second stage. So it was a choice. We had a choice to dumb it down a bit and make it less radical or whatever. We stuck to our guns.
That's right. Yeah.
So it could have not, you know, coming second and don't get any prizes for coming second. So it was a bit of a risk, but it was about confidence.
Yeah, and it took a lot of convincing as well once we won the competition to actually get it through council. So there's a design panel down there that really, I guess, because it's different, people get a bit nervous. Is it going to look like that? Is it going to be successful? Can you deliver it? Can you build it? What's it made out of? So I think we had to spend a lot of time really kind of rationalising that, but also breaking it down so that someone else could understand how it was going to happen. Getting people, the mayor was involved in some of those things, so getting her on board and getting her on side was part of the challenge. It's now been approved at DA, so that's good.
I think it's also that process of dealing with buildings that are sort of different. Is easier now because one Central Park, in that being put up, and you know, like it was forever having to sort of, the council said, okay, we want elevations of the buildings without the plants because the plants are not going to survive. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And you know, so we eventually had to convince them that yes, it could happen, and it did happen. So that having happened is people have realised, the planners, the people approving things realise, it's not no longer perhaps a question. You know.
I think that's something maybe that Sydney's a little bit behind in terms of the rest of the world, and a lot of other global cities have really exciting architecture. So I think it's just a matter of time till we were able to get it here, and now that it's started with buildings like Central Park, I think people are a little bit more excited about putting something forward that might actually get approved and be able to be built.
So with the clients, who are your typical clients? Do you do a lot of competitions like this? How do you usually win your work?
Yeah, so a lot of the big buildings do go through design excellence competitions.
Okay.
And then our main clients are developers who build the big buildings. Yeah. So pretty lucky with the people that we have had, as Terry said, that are happy to invest in exciting architecture. And then certain developers that are really willing to put money where their mouth is.
Is it happening that you're having like clients that are coming back, or it's the marketing from the successful project that you have had that is bringing new clients?
Probably a bit of both, yeah. I think we do have a lot of repeat clients that are happy with what we do, and we do work for the same people. Based on that, now we're kind of looking outside of Sydney as well, so projects in Melbourne and in Brisbane and overseas as well. So I think that's kind of one way to then look at it. So, yeah.
I mean, there's an evolution in our designs as well. There's Sky, there's Clarence Street, to Green Square. They're all different, but they're still us.
So how do you market yourselves and advertise yourselves out in the architecture world?
We don't really market ourselves in the sense. I think the projects seek to market us for them. Obviously,
produce good architecture.
And developers do fantastic marketing campaigns now to sell them at the prices that they need to. Purchasers are so savvy; they build display suites, they do beautiful brochures, they have videos and models and things like that. So I guess in a sense that is our marketing as well. So the developers that do that really well also helps us.
Okay. Terry, so we know you used to work at PTW. What would you say the biggest differences are between that firm and this one?
I think I was a director there, so part of the management team, and so coming to KTA was really about stepping away from all that sort of corporate baggage and getting back to sort of project work. And just being involved in a smaller place too. It's really fun.
And Georgia, so you've worked with Kochi for a long, long time now. What can you tell us about him and your working relationship? Like, what are the things that you've really learned from him and been inspired by?
Oh, that's a hard question. Kochi's very passionate about what he does. And I think that's obviously one of the main things you can learn is also about how to run a successful practice is that you've got to be led by that direction. And I think without that, none of us would be doing what we're doing. So I think that's something that's, I guess, very, I don't know how you say it, it's not something I necessarily am doing myself, that's him. But it's something that's pretty ambitious and very consuming. So he lives and breathes architecture. So that filters down.
And cycling.
And cycling, yeah, he does
Yeah,
cycling as well.
So like he's concerned with this kind of work-life balance, like do you find yourselves doing the same thing? Like how do you juggle like architecture life and
One
like
thing to
hours?
split it up in terms of hours. If you're saying work-life balance is how many hours am I in the office and how many hours am I not, but you never really go home and stop doing what you're doing where Terry will come in after he's had a thought at 3 o'clock in the morning, oh, I thought of how we can do this. Like, you don't really stop working. But if you think of it as a 9-to-5 job, it's probably not a good profession to be in. You've really, I think it's just part of the industry. And as I say, like, you never stop designing, so it's really hard to say, I'm finished. It's like you never finish. There's always more you can do. There's always more you can change or better or develop, and that goes right through
design goes
construction.
right through to construction because you get the challenges of this doesn't work with that because it's different on the site. So you're always problem solving, always.
Yeah, okay, great. So in the past 30 years, architecture has transitioned from analog into digital. How has this transition been reflected in the office? And do you consider your firm strongly digital now?
We've been obviously we haven't been around for 30 years, so I guess we started more in the digital side of it. KTA does, but KTA as a practice, we do rely on 3D as a main design tool, as well as then the digital aspects of documentation. Not to say that we won't still sit down with yellow trace and a pencil. We certainly still do that. But predominantly we rely on digital.
And we encourage people to step away from the computer and pick up a pen and just try and assist the visualisation of it, because quite often the flat screen is flat all the time, even though it's 3D, it's still flat. So I don't think ever that connection with bits of paper and pencils will be lost.
And you can see in the office we've still got obviously physical models around, and we don't just make them for a kind of a finished presentation, we do use them, and you really can't replace looking at something physical to looking at something on the screen, so there's still a place for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's direct, brain to pencil. You have to really consider every line you draw. It's almost a bit of a tendency in the computer to let it do it for you, so there's still a lot to be learned from doing that.
Because it's a long process. It's you draw lines and you have to consider them, because it's not as easy. Sure, you can rub them out, but so they've all got their values. So they've all got their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, there's a balance to be found, isn't it?
But certainly the digital side of it obviously is allowing efficiencies in the way that we do document and present things to clients. So there's still a lot of benefits from that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, and it's from 35 years ago to now, the pace of change is totally different. Now it's about spontaneity, it's about what you're doing today, you could be doing in return tomorrow. And being receptive and responsive to change is the growing thing, and the thing that companies of today have to accept, and even yourselves and others will be under constant barrage of change. So that's your world, being able to keep up and mentally handle it. So it's quite complex, and it's just approach, just attitude to it, because today's world is change.
So do you use Revit in the office? Is that your main?
We do. Not our main one, but we still run a lot of AutoCAD documentation as well.
Okay.
We do have projects in Revit. SketchUp, Rhino, 3D Max,
all
of it,
Do you do your rendering in-house?
We do some rendering. Okay. Most of the marketing ones are the ones you see on the big campaigns, they're external.
Okay.
in competitions.
In
with
competitions,
those,
yeah.
So what advice do you have for the next generation of architects looking to start up their own practices? Don't do it. Get out while you can.
Are you sure?
I mean, there's a lot to be said for learning from how someone else runs a practice. Like, I guess would be a huge learning curve to go from being a student to trying to start it straight out.
Impossible,
So,
wouldn't it?
yeah, so I think different practices do it different ways, and really learning from mentors that you can have in those positions obviously help you in that regard. But then I guess there's only so much that you can learn from the outside. Really, there's a huge part of architecture that you don't learn about at university that is running a business. It's the people, it's the accounting side, it's the marketing side, it's all of that.
Variation.
Yeah, we definitely see that gap. We get into the workforce. Why didn't we learn any of this at uni?
Yeah, and I guess a lot of it would be hard to teach on paper because there's really no formula for this is how to run a successful business, because then everyone would do it.
Yeah.
So it's really to make it work for you, the people, the type of work you want to do, the economic climate at the time. I think there's a lot of variables, so you'd have to...
You've got to get the experience.
Yeah.
You just can't beat that. So,
No.
so that I think in most cases requires you should go and get some experience and some time in the practices, and you should try and get time in practices of different sizes.
yeah.
Have a bit even the government. But yeah, I've worked for government for a while.
Camera's right.
It all adds to your pool
Yeah.
of expertise and seeing projects from beginning to end. You need to see a construction job built because you never know until you actually build something and you think, okay, how
And
do
you can
build
see
it?
it all the way through, you get a bit of a complete picture.
And then that's when you can decide what you think you want to do.
Yeah. So you really want to stay at, if you were starting out and you're thinking that's the goal, you want to stay somewhere where you can get that experience across the full range of documentation and construction.
Yeah.
Do you think learn from the processes of how they manage their business
And I think it's the architecture, to be an architect requires a certain level of tenacity, because for whatever reason we hang on to things and drive, want to do more and you want to do another, 20 hours a day. So that, you've got to find that, because the really good architects can find that, and some find that they can't do that journey, that's fine. So there's an innate special thing about architects that you've got to find, you've got to provide the breadth of experience and do enough in your early days to sort of say, well, now I know what I do or don't want to do.
Do you think that's easier to get to, like working in a small firm? Do you think you get better exposure in a small firm as opposed to a larger firm? Do you see?
Different exposure?
Different exposure.
So I worked at a bigger firm obviously before I worked with Koichi, and I guess you working in a more singular role and having people around you that direct what you do, you learn aspects of documentation and things like that. So if you're in a smaller firm, you're going to probably be a bit more exposed to the business side of it, just by the nature of not having a lot of hierarchy or seeing people above you. So I think you can
probably
learn
the
from
detail. You have a greater opportunity to get into the bricks and the mortar, whereas
smaller firms are probably doing smaller projects, so they'll be quicker in duration. Bigger firms run bigger projects, so you kind of fall into the cogs. But you can learn a lot from both. And I guess a lot of people love working in big firms because everything's organised, it's all set up. Small firms are a little bit more fluid, a little bit more organic. We've kind of done both now. I guess we started from a small firm, we're now not a large firm, but medium, I guess.
you should get both.
Yeah, really.
You should experience both. So bring different things to the table.
Last question. It's a bit corny. How do you always remain passionate in this field? What gets you up? What makes you come here when you hate that project and you don't want to talk to the builders?
We don't really hate any project actually, which is good. I think we're lucky that all the projects we do have are pretty exciting. It would be harder to stay motivated if you felt like you were doing the same thing you've done in the last project. I mean, even arguing with the builders sometimes is something that you yes, you've got to grit your teeth and bear it, but it means you're on site, it means you're seeing a different aspect, you're learning from builders who arguably are going to have a better idea than you do. So I think it's the continual learning aspect of the business and the profession that really kind of keeps you going. There's never not something new to learn. I don't think you ever get to the point where you think, I know it all. You're always continually being educated, whether it's from junior staff that have come in that know something different than you, a different program, a different site, a different builder, a different person. It's always something to learn. So I think that continual education and
every project's different. Every project, as I said, is a prototype. No one in the world, no other profession, no other industry builds prototypes every day. And why we do that, and we do it successfully. So every time we do something special and different, and we do it successfully. So that's pretty special.
Being able to go out and see those prototypes, that's why you do it. You want to go and see the new kitchen, see the new slab they've poured, see the new whatever it is, and that's the motivation.
The rest of the time, I don't know.
That's right, routine.
Oh no, it's not that. It's, as I say, there's something about architecture, and I don't know what that is after 30 odd years.
And it's I guess as Terry said, that architects are architects. We are a certain type of person, so it's the people here as well. That's why you come.
Because it's the people that do it. The machines don't do it.
No.
It's the people who do it.
And you were talking about like having these challenges with clients. What kind of clients do you like to have the most? Like in terms, I mean, I think that you have a broad variety of clients, and there's I think the ones that are kind of going more what you are kind of looking for, and other ones that challenge you a little bit more in terms of there needs to be more negotiation. So,
they're all challenging. Even the ones that are happy to do the amazing buildings and do the innovative stuff are still not without challenges. So I think there's always a reality to a development and a cost that can go with it. So unless you'd be working for that will have an unlimited budget, but everything is at some point got to come back to that grounding and that commercial reality. So that's always a challenge in any project. It's big or small. Let's do it to the road design.
You've got to convince them that it's realisable.
It's worth spending the money on, and
there's value in it. And I can do it for a budget.
And where we want to spend more money on it, it's about kind of involving the clients into adding value to their project. So if they're happy to spend more, they want to sell it for more. And if you can be part of that and really do things that help them add value, then they're obviously more willing to spend on the design.
I think the developer-driven market in Australia is particularly good training ground for that. Having worked with international architects who don't get that experience, we are better than them by a long way. Because we have that training with developers delivering projects and going through all of the financial rigors, where they sort of often sort of come to us and there's problems and we've got to where does this solution lie? They did 10 options and we would just go, that's where the solutions lie. There are 2 options or 3, but it's not there. It's there. And we have that experience. Because we can very quickly get to the sort of the nub of the solution or the architecture that's going to deliver both.
So in that vein, I guess this is a question like Terry, how have you seen the role of the architect change over your career, and where do you see it possibly going in terms of like the architect you see this highlighted bigger headings all over it, and now more
Like our role is getting eaten away at a bit.
Yeah, sure, it has. I mean, from, so when I started architecture, because we didn't have design and construct, and we didn't have, so the architect did have a higher status, you crafted your buildings, you drew the plan over 2 years instead of 3 months. And so you administered contracts. So you were the one who sort of told the client what they had to do and told the builder what they had to do and had that, and you did the costings. Yes, you had a totally different status, but so that's changed. QS is doing QS stuff. And so the costing came out of architecture, the project management came out of architecture. And I think the industry, there's a perception that that our role and position has been loaded, and I think, in my view, most of that perception problem is due to us. We as architects are our worst enemy in terms of our perception of ourselves. Because we said we do the right stuff, no one does what we do. But we undervalue that.
How do we reverse that? How do we get
Yeah, you're not the first one to say that. We hear this a lot. Like, what are we meant to do?
I think it's got a lot, as I say, I think it's got a lot to do with confidence. We have an underlying perception or belief, I think, that says we're artists. And because we're artists, we're second rate. And that's not true. So I think it's really about our faith in ourselves and realising what we do and not get pressured by ourselves and by others to pull ourselves apart and devalue ourselves. So I don't know what the mechanism is to make that change, but it's...
I guess it's what we're good at as well. A lot of companies probably do feel the pressure then to have people that can project manage and can do other things so that they do it all. I guess we don't really want to do it all. We want to do the part that's interesting in the design and that aspect of it. So I think it's got to stay.
That sort of stuff has got a lot more complex and
Yeah.
legal exposure and all those sorts of things. So you see, by necessity, you've got to give off to those who are equipped to do that.
Can do it, yeah.
But it's an interesting question, and I think it's a lot to do with us.
We just pop quickly and have a look at a couple of these models. So there are a few in particular that you might like to show us.
Kind of similar stream, I guess, to the Tree restaurant.
Yeah.
There's a private residential house. It's up on the Northern Beaches. It's got a big walk-in wardrobe in there. Tiffany probably knows what I'm talking about. This is a little gallery insertion that we did, which was only just in kind of concept phase for the Sherman Gallery. So it's kind of a pavilion that we designed down there. It's again a concept model. Bits and pieces from Koichi. And then this is another competition model that we did, so it's a progression from an early massing to a concept to a more defined one there. It's a little green square volume. So it's very basic form, but that was a part of the competition submission as well. This is actually a piece of furniture. A bench. Yeah. So that's a few, obviously some of the bigger buildings. On the other side, Park Street is the one in the middle with the white arches on the roof. A few progress models for Green Square as well, kind of trying to show the clients that really this loop that looks very complex to build is really just a bridge, so it's supported from the two sides and has a truss over the top. So I think, models are always good to show the clients and really simplify aspects of it. When something seems too complex and looks too complex in a drawing, being able to show them and pick it up and
No, that's okay. Thank you. Sorry.